And we were appointed as panel members and promised that this inquiry, the child abuse inquiry, would be open. I'm a journalist, although I now run the charity, and part of what I was asked was to be on the panel so that I could be a public face and I could speak publicly about things that were happening. But what actually happened, and the reason that I'm speaking out now, is that we were asked to sign contracts that were created by the Home Office, and obviously you need to sign the contract to be part of the panel. There's a clause in the contract that says, of course, you're not allowed to give any information out publicly, and then they got us to sign a collective responsibility agreement, which said that basically that a majority of the panel had to agree if we released information. But in actual fact, that was both of those things in conjunction were used to keep everybody quiet about the way the panel and the way the inquiry was being run. It should have been about protecting evidence, protecting witnesses, and making sure that legal cases were properly dealt with. But that was not how it was used.
What threats did you receive? What sanctions were suggested if you spoke out?
Well, it became very clear to myself and Graham when we went round to listening meetings, and we were being given very serious allegations about very public figures, which we took back to the inquiry, and nothing was being done about it. Months in, they couldn't actually tell us how the information was going to be used, and I was chairing the panel on one day, and I suggested that we wrote to Theresa May, who was the Home Secretary, to express our concerns. At the end of the day, I was taken to one side, and it was made clear to me. This is what I was told, that 2 years ago that Theresa May was going to be the Prime Minister, that this inquiry was going to be part of this, and that if I didn't toe the line and do as I was told, if I tried to get information out, that I would be discredited by her advisers.
But nobody knew Theresa May was going to be Prime Minister 2 years ago. So who was it who told you that Theresa May would be Prime Minister?
It was the QC to the inquiry, who was Ben Emerson, who was her advisor. I mean, he was the go-between between the Home Office and the Home Secretary and the panel. I'm an abuse survivor myself, as well as being a journalist, and I thought that being on this panel, it was extremely important that we would be uncovering great wrongs and making a difference and changing things. It was so obvious that everything was about the control and suppression of information. And we were also promised that the inquiry was independent, and when you have Home Office contracts and everything was run by the Home Office, there was no independence. But in fact it was the Home Secretary who decided, having said that survivors would be at the heart of this inquiry, that after 8 or 9 months decided that survivors wouldn't be at the heart of the inquiry.
So who was it that you think who wanted to suppress information?
My belief is that it was the Home Office. We have, I mean, I have got a document. It's 23 pages of when I appeared in front of the Home Affairs Select Committee, which should be where you openly and honestly answer the questions and challenges of MPs.
Yeah, because you can say what you like.
You have privilege, but not only that, it's actually an offence not to tell the truth to a parliamentary committee.
I know, I sat in one.
Did you? Yeah, so you know how scary it is. They provided me with a 23-page document that told me exactly what I may and may not say to the parliamentary committee. And for me, that...
What were you not allowed to say to the parliamentary committee?
There were lots of things that said we had to answer, this is a matter for the Home Office. They gave us key questions like, whether we were making statements publicly, have we started taking evidence, what was the quality of the listening meetings, and to every single one of those questions they provided an answer, which they said in the briefing that their advice was that we may use our own words and phraseology, but we must give these answers. But I was so alarmed by this document, because I'm a journalist, I know the importance of those committees, that I actually went to the clerk of the committee and said that I fear that I may not be able to tell the truth because I have been told what I may and may not say.
Now that's interesting. What did the clerk of the committee say when you said that?
He was horrified, and he went and got Keith Vaz, who was the chair, and he told me that I must tell the truth and that I must provide this document to the Home Affairs Select Committee. So that's what happened. But
Keith Vaz, of course, had to resign from the committee after, how can one put it gently, very unfortunate circumstances.
Yes.
And
very concerning
his own private life, as you know. Your advice to the Grenfell panel members, therefore, is that this may not be a straightforward inquiry that reveals all the information in the way that they perhaps hope. But I get the impression that there's a lot of suspicion about Grenfell before it even starts.
Well, I think from what I've been hearing that people are already being encouraged to come and give information informally, and this is how we started on the child abuse inquiry. But the thing is, it seems to me it's exactly the same. I want to try to stop them going down the same road where they're controlled and information is suppressed, because when there's an inquiry, they can gather all the information and then they can choose what is released. And that is what I think is extremely dangerous in this case.
Now, there's another big story today, we know, with the police paying £10,000 to an informant, a paedophile informant, to provide information which has secured prosecutions. As an abuse survivor yourself, do you think that that's an acceptable way for the police to behave? Is it acceptable for the police to hand over money if at the end of the day it delivers convictions?
I can understand the position that the police have taken on this, but personally, as a survivor myself and having spoken to many survivors and victims across the country, the idea of the police paying £10,000 to a person who has raped children is absolutely abhorrent, and there must be other ways for them to get information. And I think it is also indicative of the way the police are run down, because police can go undercover and can get information. But also, when I was on the inquiry, what I saw firsthand is that there is a real lack of support for victims coming forward. So what we need is a greater wraparound support to encourage victims to come forward, because that is really what worked with the Jimmy Savile. It was the weight of the people coming forward to give information. That's what we should be looking for in these inquiries, not paying paedophiles thousands of pounds.